Here is Benoit, the CTO of Startin'blox, and today we'll talk about our vision of the real Web3 and how interoperability and decentralization are the foundation of that. So let's discuss the current state of the art of the web architecture. Web2, which has been there for around 15 years, is the monopolistic web platforms and has succeeded at disabling web innovation by forbidding access to large user base to small-scale innovators like startups and small enterprise, small companies. Opposed to that, the last years we've seen the emergence of the Web3 philosophy, which main goal is decentralization. This decentralization can technically be reached by two different approaches. One which has been conceptually there for around 30 years, revolved around the semantic web-based technologies. Two major implementations of that, which are publicly available right now, are the Fediverse with Mastodon, Diaspora, PeerTube, and the Solid web-based initiative, which is the initiative led by Sir Tim Berners-Lee since 2015. And for some years now, we have a new player in town, which is also promoting decentralization, which are the blockchain's web-based technology and what we could present as the distributed ledger technologies. So what does that mean to achieve Web3? At Startin'blox, we are convinced that achieving decentralization can only be done through interoperability. It requires standards adoption on a few different things, like data structure, which in the case of semantic web-based technology is provided by the resource description framework, and in the case of blockchain technology is provided by agreement and JSON standard structure, like we can see on NFTs with some ERC and some identity too. And it also needs standards adoptions on communication protocols. How do you authenticate and identify your user is a pretty important question. And if we discuss distributed identification, some standards are incomplete, but has been there for a few years now, like OpenID Connect based on OAuth. And because it's those identity standards, those identification standards are web-based, we can also see now the emergence of a new family of standards, like decentralized identifiers. We are trying to merge the identification approach of blockchain on one side and web-based platform on the other side, so that platforms can actually easily share the user base independently from storing them on usual web architectures on our blockchains. And we think that's a really important next step for the web in general. Other things you need to really standardize is notifications. Notifications are everywhere. We can talk about email notification, push notifications, notification between application, agents. So notification is a really important topic. And if you wish to deliver interoperability at the web scale level, then you need standard adoption on how do you structure notifications and how they are interpreted and used. The third thing is access requests and grants. If you consider personal identity beared by any kind of system and the personal data can be stored everywhere, depending, could be on databases, it could be on solid pods, it could be on blockchains. Then you need a standard adoption on how do you manage applications to ask for access on those data, and how do you grant access on those data application per applications and at a granular level. So those are also standards which are really important and are the foundation of the next generation of web applications. I would like to notice also that blockchain are decentralized by nature, but communication between different blockchains and communication between the one blockchain and web application is done by not universal APIs, so it can be considered as the same interaction between Facebook and any kind of application. So it's kind of a big silo. It's a decentralized silo, but it's a silo. What about the weaknesses and opportunities of those concepts? Decentralized identifier, standardized identification mechanism, and it's one of the really big steps to be achieved. And what it would enable is a trust mechanism at the web scale level to fight fake news in general, but like more generally to certify the origin of any kind of content by applying and implementing verifiable credentials, which are part of vocabulary, so semantic web-based, and part crypto-based solution because it's based on a signature of content. Possible applications for those standards are a distributed like mechanism, a diploma certification, skill validation, passport validation by institutions, and content traceability. For us as Europeans, it's really important as it could enable native compliance with the law, especially the RGPD or the DMA, and that's really something to consider at a web scale level. What about the position of Startin'blox there? At Startin'blox, we ambition to become the WordPress of Web3, and for that, we are working on building a no-code decentralized application builder based on what we call blocks, which are web components, standard web components, and which allows any developers and any user to store the data on solid-based pods, but to use crypto-based and blockchain-based identification systems. So we are really working our way around the standards for the next generation of web application. And what is our relation with the Quick App Initiative? We all know that mobile now represents the majority of the internet traffic, and that it requires tooling and development platforms to emerge. And at Startin'blox, we need a standard on that. We also like the approach of modularity we can find on the Quick Apps standard, with the usage of web components or components versus page. And we foresee transpiling possibilities so that an app and a development of blocks could actually natively be compatible with both our current platform and application and with quick apps. And another important thing is that we have equivalent technological stack which are lightweight and accessible in terms of it's easy to find developers and it's easy to find contributors because it's based around the JavaScript technology, which are pretty common nowadays. So that's it, guys. Let me know if you have any question, and I hope you learned something today.